everyone. So absolute pleasure today to have probably the most intelligent person I think I've spoken to in regards to nutrition, health and supplementation. Great friend and a mentor to me is Dr. Dean on the podcast today. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Charlie. I know it's been a while trying to organise this.
We're both
so I'm glad that we've been able to fit time in now to get this done and give the people what they want.
Indeed. I'm getting pestered about this one non-stop. So give people what they want. So we've been rabbiting like two old women for about 15 minutes before starting this. So we thought we'd actually start the podcast. So I think obviously I've sent you over a list of subjects we were going to discuss. And I think you thought it was quite interesting as well. A lot of people have these questions about you because obviously your background is very, very interesting. So if we delve initially into like where you started, and originally you came from a kickboxing background, which is something we were just discussing, which is a fascinating thing to find out about you.
I mean, a lot of people don't realise that's exactly where I started. I'd been involved in martial arts as a child, and then sort of grew out of it and pursued football, Gaelic football, hurling. And then we entered my brother into a kickboxing class when he was 10. And after a while, I was sort of like, that seems really fun. You sort of get the drive again to go back to martial arts because I'd been on the Irish karate team as a child. So I started kickboxing again and, slowly worked up through the ranks of kickboxing. But unfortunately, one evening at training, we were practicing spinning kicks. And as I landed, my right foot went out in front of me and just felt this funny electrical feeling in the joint of my ankle. I got up and I was sort of like, that didn't feel too good. But anyway, got on with it. Went through like 2 or 3 months of physio. And then it wasn't getting any better. So they sent me for an MRI. The MRI didn't show anything. And I said to the orthopedic surgeon, no, just go in and even do a scope, do something I said to him, there's something not right there. So anyway, he went in, he done the orthoscopic surgery and he found I'd smashed all the bone in my ankle. So for 3 months, I was walking around on this ankle thinking everything was fine. So from there was quite an intense rehab, and the surgeon kept saying to me, you're never going to go back to kickboxing, you're never going to be able to play football. You may want to look at maybe swimming as a hobby. I was sitting there devastated going,
play a bit of chess.
You can't be saying it. Yeah, you can't be saying this to me, because at that period, kickboxing and gym training, all that was my life. So I sort of, in a way, had a point to prove. And I guess as we get further into the podcast, people will see I'm not the type of person that you want to challenge. Because when I put my mind to...
Do you think it's wrong that necessarily medical professionals will tell you something like that? You can't do something. Because I hear that all the time when people say that they were told not to do it and then they went and done it anyway and they've been fine. I know it's obviously have guidelines.
I guess,
but
yeah, I mean, they're probably obviously coming from a responsible standpoint in that, to prevent you from further hurting yourself. But if you can imagine the psychological impact that could have is confounding. So, I mean, even in my case, I literally went back to the physiotherapist after the surgery on my ankle, and I had to learn how to walk again, from walking to jogging to being able to sprint on it, and then from sprinting to being able to kick a punching bag. I remember the first time the physiotherapist said to me, right, I've been able to sprint on the treadmill, say for 5 to 10-second bouts of sprinting, just to test the impact on my ankle. And then he said to me, right, kick that punching bag. And I remember looking at it going, I can't do that, because of obviously psychologically I'd associated hitting that object with pain in my ankle from the previous months before that. And he said, no, hit the bag. And then I gave it a kick, and he goes, go on, kick it harder. After that, I thought, Jesus, from being told that, you're never going to kickbox, to me smacking this punch bag with full force kicks. So, I mean, that got me back into kickbox. And then after that surgery, and then from there, I was doing my PhD. So a lot of people probably don't realize, at that point when I was kickboxing, I was doing my undergraduate degree in chemistry and pharmaceutical chemistry. So that was all about, you know, obviously chemistry is a standalone subject, and then pharmaceutical chemistry was pharmacology, drug design, all those aspects of the pharma industry, basically.
Is that something you'd always aspired to do when you were younger and had an interest in?
No, again, this is again how I guess how complex not my life has been. But growing up, I always wanted to be a medical doctor. Always, it was always like, that's why I always laugh now that I am Dr. Dean, because I used to be joking to my mom. You know, I used to say to her, like, when I was 6 or 7, "Oh, Dr. Dean." And, when I got to my final year of secondary school, when it came time to actually choose to pursue what I was going to do in university, probably people have seen on Instagram, like, I was a really avid musician as well, and I sort of like, I got alienated by the medical community, and I seen how much of your life you have to devote to it to be a successful doctor. You know, 80 or 90-hour weeks, and then obviously your family has to, you know, take the brunt of that workload. So, I mean, I don't know, a switch flipped in my head, and I turned to my parents and said, "I don't want to do medicine anymore." And I said, at that point, I was sort of like a little lost. And then I said to my mother, "I want to go do music in university." And she said to me, "You are in your," she said, "that's a waste of your brains," basically. I was like going to her, "No, I want to do music. I'm not doing medicine at all." She goes, "But what are you going to do for a career?" Which again is like very Irish mammy, like typical of, you know, you're going to end up on the street homeless as a musician. Busking, yeah. Because I mean, at that point, you know, I'd been playing in a couple of bands, and I just thought music, I had such a passion for it, that why not do music? And then she said to me, "Right, let's make a deal." She said, "If you go and do another degree and say maybe a science subject, when you get that degree, you'll have a backup plan that when you're finished, you can go and do music afterwards." I was like sitting there, and probably at 17, I thought, it's only 4 years. By the time I finish the degree, I'll be 21. I can still do music. So I, like, another subject aside from music that I was very good at was chemistry. And then there was the course that I chose to do, the chemistry and pharmaceutical chemistry. It was a brand new degree subject in a university, Maynooth University, which was literally 10 minutes from my parents' house. I thought, very close to home, a subject that I'm very good at. Why don't I go and do this degree? And then I'd be ticking that box off for my parents. So it turns out then, as I went into the course, I ended up coming top of the class every year in the university, which then led me into my final year of the degree course. And I'm sort of left again at this crossroads where during my undergraduate, I'd been playing in a band called Distillery Lane, and we were getting very popular in Dublin. And I'm sort of thinking, like, where do I go from here? Do I continue down the route of music where I originally set out to go in? Or do I go and do another degree in something science related, or go back to medicine? Or then I seen a possibility for a research PhD. So with all the options in play, I chose to go the route of the research PhD. And I applied for the top level research scholarship in Ireland by the Irish Research Council. So again, this plays into my whole mindset of, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to prove you wrong, because the Irish Research Council scholarship is only awarded to about 30 people every year, and that's all science disciplines. So it even includes psychology, medicine, biology, computer science. So based on the fact that I came top of the university every year up until that final year, I thought, I'm in a good chance to get this scholarship. Part of the application was a personal statement from 2 references within the university. So I went with, like, my supervisor, Dr. John Stevens, for my PhD. He gave me 1 reference, and then I chose another professor in the department. Well, then when the results came out for the Irish Research Council scholarship, I didn't get it. And I remember sitting there going, what do I do now? I've got no way of doing a funded PhD. And it all sort of stemmed down to when we looked at my score, I missed out on the scholarship by 1 point based on the reference that was given to me by that professor. So I remember we had 7 weeks until our finals in the university for our final year of college. And then they announced that there'd be a second round for the Irish Research Council scholarships. This was, you know, a last chance for 10 more people to get a scholarship. And I guess there was the expectation that I would get that scholarship from everyone in the university, that when I didn't get it and others did, it was sort of like, you know, you're sort of like pointing the finger and laughing and, you know, oh, Dean didn't get it, but I got it.
Yeah, got your back up.
And I remember sitting there going, you know what, I am really going to make you all regret what you've done there. So I literally spent 8 weeks before my finals of the college degree in the library for 12 to 13 days studying, making sure that I knew things inside out. So that when it came to the finals, when our results came out, I ended up coming top of the overall university. To the point that I was like, you know what, I'm going to make sure that when this second round of scholarships comes out, I'm going to pick another professor who may not give me, not, what happened there was she gave me a balanced reference because she had someone else applying as well. So I made sure that I chose someone within the department to give me a reference that would give me, you know, a top level reference without trying to balance it, because they'd have no conflict of interest. And then sure enough, that second round, I got the research scholarship. So that sort of see me then proceed into the PhD under Dr. John Stevens, where I was introduced to developing a new class. So this new class of fluorescent molecules. So basically what my PhD then involved was designing new molecules within this class to then hopefully develop a series of molecules that you could use for fluorescent diagnostics. So for example, you know, you could inject this compound into someone's body. It would attach to, say, a malignant protein within a tumor, and the tumor would glow, and you'd be able to tell diagnostically where that fluorescent molecule has traveled to for diagnostics. That's what I spent the 4 years then doing, and it was between Maynooth and Galway, which is on the west coast of Ireland.
Galway's supposed to be beautiful, isn't it?
It is. It's absolutely amazing. So this is sort of where the transition period came between kickboxing and bodybuilding, because during the PhD, I ended up having to move to Galway to do some of the fluorescent research. They had a special lab there with all different microscopes and spectrometers. But during that period, I'd been kickboxing during the PhD, that when I had to move to Galway, it sort of left me in a position where for 6 months I had no access to kickboxing. There was no local kickboxing club in Galway city. There was one in Sligo, which was like, you know, a 50-minute drive, but at that time I didn't have a car, so it was, the logistics of it didn't really work out. So I ended up thinking to myself, what can I do here to keep myself motivated or keep myself involved? And obviously I'd been training in the gym as part of kickboxing, that I'd always had like an interest in bodybuilding, and that, you know, you'd read magazines and you'd look at videos online, to the point that I thought, so I trained in the gym for kickboxing. I diet quite hard and I pay attention to my nutrition, because obviously I have to drop into weight classes within kickboxing.
And was that
why not apply that?
Self-taught?
Say that again?
That self-taught in terms of the nutrition aspects?
Yeah, I mean, just from literally trial and error. Back then, like, you didn't really have, the internet wasn't as vast and I guess a learning hub as it is today. You know, I guess towards the end of my college degree, the internet, in that, you know, all these resources online started to become really popular towards the like 2009, 2010. But yeah, it was sort of like, you know, literally just understanding basic energy balance, not really paying attention to what I was doing. Like when we look back at how we cut weight, there was no huge science to it, and that how I'd approach it now today. But I guess with that, I thought, why not do a bodybuilding show? Why not spend 6 months training, dieting? It's literally just the reverse of kickboxing. You train, you try and maintain your muscle mass while getting rid of body fat. It's fairly similar to dropping weight for kickboxing while trying to maintain performance. So that was 2011, and I entered the BMBF in the UK. And after that show, I thought, geez, I don't know, there's something when someone says to you when you compete for the first time that it can become addictive. They warn you before you get on stage. Being on stage at a bodybuilding show, when you get off stage, you'll want to do another show. There's no like, oh, that wasn't fun at all. You get off the stage, like, wow, what a rush between, you know, posing against people and, you know, doing your routine and the crowd cheering. That when I finally moved back to Dublin, I thought, why not aim for a show in 2012? At this point, I started to have doubts over my ankle with kickboxing. I'd won the World Championships in 2010 before I moved to Galway. And I thought, okay, there are other ways that I can step up in in kickboxing, but bodybuilding from a longevity perspective, you know, there's less chance of, I guess, injury, and that you're not going to get hurt from getting punched or kicked in the head or in the stomach, or, you know, bodybuilding is all under your control. You control your safety when you're training. So I figured, why not spend a whole year and see how I could get on in the next Irish National Championships? And that was 2012. And then from there, literally 2012, went to the European Championships for Ireland, the IFBB European Championships for bodybuilding in 2013. Competed 2014, 2015, all the way up until 2016 was my last year I've competed with my wife. So we'll see now for this year, after being away for 3 years, whether I get back on stage or not.
Be exciting to see.
But I mean, yeah, that's like, you know, that's sort of where everything began and how I got involved with science indirectly to where we are today.
How did you transition from like conventional sciences into like health supplementation? Like where did that knowledge come from? Because I don't imagine that was a standard thing you'd find to university.
No.
Really.
So obviously my degree was in pharmaceutical chemistry. So we were looking at drug design. We were looking at herbal science. We were looking at toxicology. Then as part of my undergraduate degree, I had a part-time job where I became trained as a pharmacist assistant, as a dispenser, you know, reading prescriptions, going through the different levels of healthcare assistant. So you then actually get to see how these drugs are applied in practice. Because again, that was another sort of route. One of my best friends is a pharmacist. He was trying to edge me into going to do pharmacy after my degree, because it seemed like the next logical step. I've learned how all these drugs, how to make all these drugs. Why not move into the field where you actually apply them? But again, after 3 years of being a pharmacist assistant and seeing how monotonous that job was, I was like, regardless of the money that you earn, it's a boring job. So that's sort of where I got pulled towards the PhD. But obviously with that, then I got to see how you apply, I guess, pharmaceutical chemistry to health. And then from there, I guess when I moved into bodybuilding, and then obviously having that background in pharmacology, then being able to apply manipulations of hormones to bodybuilding, and obviously the health implications then that come with that manipulation of hormones, how we may want to counteract that. I guess I'm sort of coming from a conventional background, so I obviously see that we develop drugs to treat problems, or more so treat the symptoms, but it doesn't really tackle the root cause of why someone might have an issue. So for example, you could have high cholesterol, you get prescribed a statin. The statin blocks your body from making cholesterol.
It doesn't stop.
It doesn't address why your body's making excess cholesterol. Is it because you have a bad diet? Are you band-aiding a bad diet with a statin? Is it familial and genetic? And then more so, are there stuff that you can do more so lifestyle-wise or natural health supplementation-wise to address the problem, rather than band-aiding the issue with a pharmaceutical compound?
Respectfully, would you say that's very much the current rule of approach with like conventional GPs? Even like, for example, one of my clients did a Shred Nate program recently. He sent me an amazing message about how his blood sugar's improved dramatically. His diabetes is like nearly completely gone. Everything's cleared up. His blood panel's amazing, just because he's been on like, not just because he's been on a decent diet, and how that's completely changed everything. And they're in like all diet. And I was like, for me, it seems so obvious that that's going to have the biggest impact of anything.
Yeah, I mean, we do tend to forget about lifestyle as a medicine. That a lot of the issues in terms of your diet, your environment, pay into disease processes. It's not only, you know, that you could develop a disease. It could be self-induced from what you choose to put in your body, both, you know, substance-wise, smoking, etc., or even diet. That do you actually follow a healthy diet? And you know, you can see how that can progress into diabetes or progress into hyperlipidemia. But again, it's sort of like what alienated me and after my PhD and didn't go into the pharmaceutical industry was that it appeared to me that people were approaching health from the perspective of how can I get rid of the symptom, as opposed to how can I get rid of the disease. Because obviously, if you can get rid of disease, then there's no need for half the pharmaceutical. There's no need for half the pharmaceutical companies on the planet. I mean, like, if anyone ever wants to watch it, it's on YouTube. I gave a presentation at Irish Muscle Power in 2018 where I compared like the top 5 diseases in the world between hyperlipidemia, so high cholesterol, depression, and blood sugar issues. And I was sort of showing, you know, this is what conventional medicine does, so how we treat the symptom. And this is more so, you know, the alternative aspect or functional medicine side of things, where we go to the root cause of the problem. And I guess as the years have gone on, my curiosity more so towards functional medicine as it applies to bodybuilding became more and more apparent. It was like, you know, all these guys are taking high levels of androgens, and it's inducing health issues. Now, how can we tackle those health issues but going actually to the root cause, as opposed to typical bro science of taking another drug to counteract the side effect of another drug? And I guess that's sort of where I've become very popular over the last few years, and I started to speak up and educate. You know, what people are saying more so online on forums is not correct. You're basically applying the same logic of, for example, you could have high estrogen. The bro science through is take an aromatase inhibitor to stop estrogen production to the point where you have no estrogen, which again feeds into other health issues. Whereas the other side of it, from a functional side of applying functional medicine to bodybuilding, would be you have high estrogen. Why do you have high estrogen? Is it because you're metabolizing testosterone to estrogen through the aromatase enzyme? Is it because you have poor metabolism of estrogen? People forget this one all the time. Your body has to clear estrogen from the body. So just because you have high estrogen, it could be the fact that you're not clearing it fast enough from your body. So then you start looking at the liver. Is there a problem with the liver? Or is there a problem with the gut? And it's starting to take that, multifaceted approach to health when it pertains to bodybuilding, of looking at the broader picture and figuring out how can I address that one issue, as opposed to, basically taking the easy way out and just getting rid of estrogen altogether.
Would you say that, to put the answer in your mouth, that a huge amount of people probably overlook the importance in terms of their own progress with their internal health? Like if their liver, kidney function, for example, is at 100%, then they'll obviously be able to improve and progress faster.
Yeah, I mean, even from where it sort of all started of me getting involved with the Train by JP forum as just a spectator, literally my broader message all the time from day one was blood work. I've got such and such a problem. Go get blood work. And then you're sort of giving back the answer of, well, why do I want to do that? And it's like, well, you don't understand what's going on underneath. So obviously blood work is the first step to understanding what's actually happening internally with our physiological processes.
Is that something you'd recommend for anyone across the board?
Definitely. Even naturals. Natural people should be getting blood work once a year to assess what's happening to their natural testosterone. Say, for example, they are a competitor. As much as I go on about, I guess, androgen steroid-induced hypergonadism, so obviously when you take steroids, it shuts down your HPTA, which makes your testosterone. Natural athletes are just as risky if they follow prolonged periods of dieting for natural bodybuilding shows, that their pituitary output can become negatively affected. And you have guys running into fertility issues who are naturals. So it's imperative that they're watching their blood work just as importantly as, say, an enhanced athlete, to make sure that their decisions to remain natural, whereas for personal or for pride, they should be still monitoring their health, even though there's a perceived, I guess, state of thought that they're not doing any damage to their body significantly. And again, then for normal population, we want to make sure that we're watching the trends of, say, our lipids. Are our lipids getting progressively worse as we get older? Are we running into issues where the liver or the pancreas can't keep up with the demand to process, junk food, if that's the majority of your diet? It gets to a point where you could get into your mid-40s, having never done blood work throughout your life, basically, and then run into an issue of disease, which could have been prevented if you had been getting blood work every year. You would have seen the trend. For example, HbA1c, which is a marker of your glycated red blood cells. So it gives you an idea of your blood sugar for the last 3 months. If you see that as you're getting older, every year your HbA1c goes from 3 to 3.5 to 3.8 to 4.2. You start seeing a creep towards 5, which is, just on the border of developing type 2 diabetes. You can intervene. You can say, okay, over the past 5-10 years, my diet has not been very good. It's been excessive in carbohydrates or lacking exercise to meet that energy demand. And you can start to see then the patterns that blood work present even to normal population, as opposed to even athletes.
In terms of obviously your knowledge and the future of supplements, where everything's going, where do you source your information from? Where do you see things going? Because obviously, you obviously work with Supplement Needs, developing some amazing health supplements and other bits and pieces. Where do you source the knowledge to develop these products, and where do you see the vision of where everything's going to go?
I guess where the knowledge came from was just, I guess, years of studying biochemistry and taking an objective view on, okay, for example, start with the brain or start with the heart. What disease processes happen at the brain or at the heart? What are the biochemical processes that happen there? And how do we support them to have good health within those physiological processes? So, for example, the sleep stack, like that literally stemmed from my own personal need for something to help me sleep as I was a competitor.
Because you work crazy night shift. It's one of those things where people say, I work a night shift, I
yeah.
can't trained because of blah, 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 blah. But you're the main man for probably mastering the fine art of the night shift.
Yeah, I mean, I swap and change between days and nights, and my sleep pattern does not change. And obviously, the sleep stack over the years has been a vital component to that, to ensure that, you know, I'm supporting my body on a chemical level to have good sleep and to offset the potential negative implications of shifting my circadian rhythm, because we work a month of day shift and then a month of night shift. And then the month of night shift, when I'm on my days off, I revert to my daytime sleeping pattern. So for the month of night shift, I spend 3 or 4 days sleeping during the day, and then the other 3 or 4 days when I'm on my days off, sleeping at a normal time at night. And I can show people my Oura Ring data, it never shifts. It's always on top of a normal sleeping pattern between nights and days, differentiating between the two patterns. But the sleep stack, I remember, I think it was 2014, I was competing, I was preparing for the Irish Nationals. And I remember back then, before I met Morgan, my now wife, most bodybuilding competitors will get to that point that like 5 or 6 weeks out where insomnia kicks in, whether it's supplement induced or it's just from low calories that your body just can't fall asleep, or because of you have an overactive mind. But I remember like going to bed, say at 10 o'clock, and then waking up at 3:30 in the morning and going, right, I'm wide awake, starting my day at 3:30. And but obviously the long-term health implications of that maybe 5.5, 6 hour sleep period, as opposed to a period of sleep, may not be potentially good long-term.
Do you ever recommend sleep you'd recommend people shoot for?
Not necessarily. And I don't like to give arbitrary numbers. And obviously people have probably read How to Sleep, is it Matthew Walker's book? Why We Sleep. And in that, he does say that you're looking at, 7.5 hours of sleep as opposed to sleep time. People tend to forget, just because you're in bed 7.5 hours does not mean you've slept for 7.5 hours. But like it took looking at them, what's the biochemistry of sleep? What induces sleep? What processes are involved in sleep? What enzymes? What cofactors? And from there, I started to develop an understanding that, okay, to fall asleep, we need serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter of our brain that calms us down, gets our minds ready for sleep. We need to have low neurotransmitters. You have to have low dopamine so that your brain isn't thinking of a million things before you go to sleep. So we need to make sure that any dopamine that's in our brain is cleared out. From there, you're sort of then moving into your sleep phase, into falling asleep. So just because you fall asleep doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to stay asleep. And that's where that important hormone melatonin comes in. So not only do you need to have adequate levels of serotonin, you need to have adequate levels of melatonin to stay asleep. When you look at the biochemistry, serotonin feeds melatonin in your body. So people tend to take melatonin as a supplement, thinking that they're doing their body good. But the half-life of a melatonin supplement is about 3 or 4 hours. So that's why you take melatonin, you'll have a great sleep for the first 3 hours of the night, and then you might probably wake up because there isn't enough being supported from your own endogenous production. So the sleep stack idea came that will increase serotonin in your brain, will decrease dopamine to get you relaxed, will support your nervous system, again, to ensure there's a relaxed state of mind. And then once we have that high serotonin environment, we'll start pushing that serotonin to melatonin while you're sleeping to keep you asleep. And again, I was just looking at the cofactors of each step of what the enzymes involved require to stay supported. And that's where the 6 ingredient sleep stack came from. So obviously that was 2014. It took until just a conversation when I was on night shift with Lee, the owner of Supplement Needs, where I'd been buying some supplements from Lee, and I seen that he had launched his health range of products. He just had a basic range of, multivitamin, a B complex. But I was impressed with what he'd chosen for the multivitamin to start. Like, I had all the bioactive B vitamins, I had methylfolate instead of folic acid. And I thought, this is a company or a guy who understands how important bioactive compounds are for supplements. So I was joking with him. He had, and we always laugh about this, he had like a sleep combo of 5-HTP with ZMA. And if people know, ZMA is like the leading standard all these years of, if you have a sleep issue or you're bodybuilding, competitor, take ZMA for your sleep, which is basically zinc aspartate and magnesium. I think it's magnesium. No, it's magnesium aspartate and zinc. I can't think of the form of zinc that's in it, but it's basically a really cheap form of zinc and magnesium that people don't actually realize. It's not quite bioavailable to your body. And I just joked to him. I said, I've got this 6-ingredient sleep stack, just happened to call it that when we were talking, that I take personally for the last 2 years. I said to him, if you put that out as a product, I can guarantee you it's going to be popular. And I could sort of sense his skepticism to it. And I said to him, trust me, just get, the 6 ingredients manufactured, put it out as a trial for, 2 or 3 months and see how it happens, see how it takes up. And I guess from there it just exploded. People tried it and it's like, how does this work? Like this sort of like, wizardry of, there's no sedatives in it.
I'm going to call you Dean the Wizard.
Like, all the other sleep products that have been on the market have been sedative based, in that they basically just tell your brain to switch off, but they don't actually cause you to fall into, I guess, patterns of sleep, the phases of sleep between deep sleep, REM sleep, and non-REM.
Actually improving the quality of your sleep.
Yeah, I mean, basically, most sedative-based sleep aids basically tell the GABA receptors in your brain shut off. Just because those receptors are now switched off does not mean that your brain actually falls into sleep phases. So although you do black out, you may not actually be getting deep sleep and REM sleep rest. Whereas the sleep stack actually encouraged your brain to naturally relax and then naturally fall into your sleep patterns and then naturally keep you asleep. And then I guess obviously when we look at a supplementation perspective, and I guess for anyone that's a bodybuilder listening, it's well known that harsh androgens like trenbolone can upset neurotransmitter balance, so they can cause higher dopamine to be in your brain, and they slow down that enzyme that clears dopamine from your brain. That enzyme called COMT, catechol-O-methyltransferase, it needs magnesium to work efficiently. So that was sort of where the magnesium component of the sleep stack come in, is that you're giving your body extra magnesium to support that enzyme to get rid of the dopamine out of your brain and help you fall asleep. And from there, like, people were being cured of transomnia all over the UK with the sleep stack, and adding a small amount of magnesium bisglycinate on top of it to give that extra magnesium they need. And again, it's sort of like people are confounded that how is this possible? But it's all going back to the biochemistry and seeing what happens down these pathways of biochemistry and how to address them. And I guess then taking that approach for sleep stack, when I seen how popular the sleep stack became, I said to Lee, okay, me and Lee started to become very close friends. I said to him, I've got another brilliant idea. Why don't we then start to target the whole body? Why don't we, create a company that develops products where people only have to go to one website to buy all their supplements, rather than before going on Amazon and buying like 15 different tubs? Why not create, say, a heart stack or a liver stack or a kidney stack, blood pressure stack? Start thinking of the body in terms of processes and how we can help support that, whether it's even from a general population standpoint to enhance athletes. And that's sort of where then I started to look at, you know, what happens in these disease processes. So for example, with the CV stack, the heart stack, what do I want to address there? One, I want to make sure that your body's making adequate amounts of HDL, which is our quote unquote good cholesterol, transport cholesterol. And we want to then ensure that we have low levels of LDL, the potential bad cholesterol, but more so prevent that LDL from getting oxidized, which can, you know, further generate plaque formation in your arteries. So all these stacks stem from looking at what happens in the body and then basically working backwards from there. How can I support that with, I guess, natural or readily available nutritional supplements when put together in a specific ratio, I guess, would create a beneficial process for the body. And I mean, that's literally how over the last 2 years, how fast supplement needs has grown, because for one thing, before I even joined, I said to Lee, if I'm going to do this, one, the products need to be as cost efficient as possible. They need to be as readily available to the general population as they are to athletes. Two, we're never ever going to use proprietary blends. So other companies use proprietary blends. In the past, proprietary blends were used as a, I guess, an intellectual property control. So if you had a supplement and you made a proprietary blend, you'd list like 7 ingredients in this proprietary blend. So on your label, you'd have 2 grams proprietary blend and you'd list all the ingredients in it, but you wouldn't tell people how much of each is in that proprietary.
People just load it with the cheap ones.
Exactly. Normally on the label, the very first ingredient that's listed by law is the one that's there in the highest amount. And that drives me nuts, because proprietary blends are there, in my opinion, solely to protect profits as opposed to protecting the company.
It's also quite common as well, isn't it, that people will bring out a supplement range and then change the formula after 3 to 6 months to a cheaper version after some headway with it.
It is. And I mean, that was more so why I said to Lee, no proprietary blends. Products have to be cost efficient and, you know, put the consumer and the health of consumers first, profits come second. And he's completely of that same ethos of putting people first, which has, I guess, annoyed other companies, because I've done a direct comparison of, say, a competitor of ours, where we're able to offer products 300% cheaper. And it's sort of going, you know, if we can do that, why do you think that company is offering a very similar product for 3 times the price? And I like that's sort of where now, getting further and further into the supplement industry, and my name getting more and more known, that, you know, yes, it's going to pee off a lot of people, but it's for the benefit of consumers. I guess even like what enticed me into supplement needs was the fact of the multivitamin, like I said at the start, which we've, you know, tweaked over the last couple of years. But the initial phosphorylated B vitamins, the active B vitamins, and the methylfolate, when you look at other top companies that have, you know, sponsored athletes, for example, you know, Olympia level competitors or top Instagram influencers or fashion models, there's a well-known brand and they have a multivitamin which is a pack of several tablets. That's as much as I'm saying about the company's name. But I recently had a conversation with someone and he asked me, they were taking this product, and then I said, well, you'd be better off taking Supplement Needs multivitamin, because it has all the active phosphorylated B vitamins. It has the bioavailable ingredients that your body requires. And then when he found out the price, so the multivitamin retails for about £11 for a 2-month supply, he said to me, how come I'm paying £40 for a month of this other brand?
I know what the other one is you're talking about as well. I can pretty much guarantee it. The branding
Yeah.
behind it is.
Yeah, so my answer to him was basically, effing idiots like you buy into that marketing and buy that brand without any consumer knowledge. And that's sort of where my sort of involvement with educating people as well on supplements comes from, to show people that you have companies who are scrupulous like this that will put out products at ridiculous margins that do F all for your body. And it's because of the flashy branding, or you see such and such an athlete is sponsored by this company. So if they use it, which I guarantee you they're probably not, and they're using my products, are pushing these products. And it's sort of duping people into, thinking that branding, is superior to another company just because of the price differential. And I guess that's what.
Price, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean that's exactly what, like, you tend to value things that are more expensive. You associate, in your mind, I'm paying a premium for this product, but that's how they manipulate and get away with it. And I guess that's sort of where people are starting to, other, I guess company owners are starting to get annoyed at me directly, because of I'm not one for caring about profits, neither is Lee. Like, obviously, a business, you run a business to earn money, but you don't do it at the expense of taking advantage of people.
The thing is, a long-term success of a business comes with building a brand and reliability and like trust, and people know 100% they can trust what you put out because of who you are and your core values.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that is one of my core values, is that, like, I'm just in this for helping people. There's no financial benefit to me. I still wake up every day. I go to my normal day job. This to me is to ensure that I can put my knowledge that I know out there to make sure that people stay healthy.
You think part of that came from when you wanted to be a doctor when you were younger? You still have the opportunity to help people?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, it comes even at the point that, sometimes it can be potentially misled for being taken advantage of, because I try and help so many people without looking for anything in return, that there comes to a point now where you need to balance your time management of helping people without any cost to an extent, while still maintaining that, my time is valuable. And I guess sort of that's where my consultation practice came into the thing of, if you have a quick question, if I can answer you and put you in the right direction, great. If not, we'll have a little chat, we'll have a consult, and we'll delve deeper into your issue, and I'll share my knowledge with you as an overall. I guess it's again how people value your time and your expertise. And I mean that's exactly how we've developed this relationship. Yeah. Most people, like, you came to me at an initial consult and we tackled some issues head on, which I guess after a period, I think it was 8 weeks went by, and then you actually messaged me and said, "Oh, I'd like to come on board and actually learn from you."
And I've learned so much from you on a daily basis. Almost like this week's lesson was don't eat frozen food that's been in the freezer for more than 2 weeks after a bad bowel movement, let's put it like that. So it's a constant learning curve. A lot of things I'm awarely obvious that I'd probably tell myself, but I often need to be told by someone else, you need to maybe rein it in a bit or do X, Y, Z. As you probably said, like before we got on the call, you work with Callum, for example. It's easier to have someone to bounce ideas around with rather than
like
driving yourself around the circle.
I learned that very quickly, because my first 2 years in competitive bodybuilding, I coached myself. And while that got me to, international level bodybuilding, it was such a burden on my mental health, in that, constantly second guessing myself. Did I do enough cardio this week? Was my energy balance right this week? Did I overeat?
But you end up stressing yourself out about it, because you're constantly thinking about it, analysing it.
Do I need to refeed? Do I need to do this? And you're just constantly guessing in your mind, even when it came to peaking, during the fight, like, quote unquote peak week, where you're starting to look at your physique objectively and go, am I too flat? Am I holding water? Do I need to carb up more? That handing that off to someone that, yes, I can bounce ideas off and let them guide me, it is amazing for me being able to focus on putting my priorities elsewhere then, as opposed to making decisions all the time. I guess there's a difference when people approach coaching also, that you either go to a coach to learn or you go to have your hand held. For me, with the small group that I do choose to coach, most of it isn't about hand holding. So I know sometimes it can be a bit tricky when people ask me questions, you know, when I'm coaching them, and I give them a hint and tell them, right, off you go and do your research and come back and tell me what you found. I could easily type back, you know, oh, the problem happened here, and, you know, for example, like, why would you want to maybe keep meal one carb free? Or why would we want to look at carbohydrates intra-workout? I could easily type out, you know, a couple of sentences in a paragraph and tell you why. But I'd rather give you little hints. You go off and do your research, and then you come back to me, and then it's sort of like, oh, that makes sense now. And then my job as a coach, the job as a coach then is being fulfilled, and I'm educating you so that when you no longer need me, which should be the case for anyone that works with a coach, you should be able to, you know, it could be a year, it could be 2 years, but there should be a period of time where you then feel confident to go, I know all these lessons. I no longer need my hand held. I can apply these lessons to myself and, you know, no longer require someone to guide you.
I think the whole thing you talk about teaching people is the whole analogy of you can give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, or you can teach a man a fish to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. This is that sort of expression.
Yeah.
And it's the only way you learn,
and that's it,
to a degree.
Yeah, and I mean, even like when people like DM me on Instagram with questions, sometimes they ask me questions that the answer is plainly obvious within their question. And if you rephrase the question and bounce it back at them, they sort of look at what they've asked and then go, oh yeah, the answer is very obvious. I mean, I had a consult recently about acne. And, you know, you can go into all the physiological processes of what causes acne and the underlying potential hormonal issues. But you could go right back to the very start, step one, and address hygiene.
First thing, say, are you washing enough? Bed sheets.
Yeah, or are you washing too much? Or are you even, so if you have acne on your face, how often are you changing your pillow, the pillow sheet? How often are you changing the mattress cover? Like, these are little things that people don't focus on, the simple, basic solutions to start, and then working from there. And I guess we never really spoke about it at the start, but my career job is as a chemical engineer. And I rely on simple solutions to complex problems to start.
Did you go for the turn it on, turn it off technique with a lot of it?
I was just about to get to that. We have, so I work in plasma physics. In plasma etch is the process. So we create a plasma which then helps to etch detail into the silicon wafer for computer chips. I work for Intel as a chemical engineer. So part of that system is a microwave which provides high energy into the plasma to generate the plasma. So plasma basically is the fourth state of matter. You have solid, you have gas, you have liquid, and then you have plasma. Most people don't realize you have 4 states of matter. Plasma is a high pressurized gas. So to generate plasma, you need high energy from a microwave. But that microwave, because it sends microwave power into the plasma, sometimes that microwave power comes back out of the plasma, back onto your generator. And part of that is you have a tuning system which tunes out that reflected power. Sometimes that tuning process goes wonky, and it's driven by 3 little mechanical stubs that move up and down to change their position to absorb the power that bounces back out. When that process goes funny, the most straightforward solution is turn off the auto tuner, turn it back on, and let the system recalibrate where the tuning positions should be. Like the most basic solution to such a complex problem, you could then, you know, that was one of the parts to, even when I was interviewing for Intel, was he asked me such a complex problem. Basically, there was a stage in a machine that moves up and down. And he said to me, the stage isn't moving. And I said to him, okay. And he shows me all the schematics to the stage. And there's this power board, and there's, you know, this pneumatic gas line. And so a couple of things I said to him was, so like, first off, there's a computer screen. So can I see that the stage is down? He said, yeah, you can look actually in, and there's a window, and you can see where the stage is relative to its position. It's like, okay. So I said to him, you know that it's not a communications issue, so the computer's working fine with the machine. He's like, yep. Then I looked at the schematic and I was like, okay, it's a stage. It moves up and down. The stage is driven by air that moves up and down. I said to him, you've obviously got a leak somewhere that's bleeding out, so the stage can't move. And he said to me, exactly. This is the top area manager for my department to interview me. And he said to me, you know what, Dean? He said, I get top level PhDs coming into me and trying to understand mechanics and, you know, machine mechanics, and going down this route of, oh, there could be an electrical issue with this communications board. But I'm actually like taking a step back and actually looking at the problem and going, what's the simplest solution to start? Why isn't that stage moving? And it's because there's air bleeding out of it. Fix the air bleed, the stage starts moving again. You can apply that same logic, like I've said through this whole podcast, to health. What's the root cause? What's the simplest thing that I can do to start to address that health issue, and then work from there? Logic. I guess having that engineering background over the last 6 years has made a big difference in how I apply my logic to problems within health, supplementation, and bodybuilding.
Coming back to bodybuilding, what would you say is the main reason with people you see or people you've worked with who they don't progress?
Two things. They over or underestimate their energy balance. So they're either not eating enough or not they're eating too much. So again, when we look at it from the perspective of either putting on muscle mass or losing body fat, that's one of the simplest mistakes. People tend to
be too aggressive each way.
Yeah, pay attention exactly what or that. You know, you could ask someone, are you eating enough? And they say, oh yeah, and then you go, well, what are you eating? And then they list it out and it's like 2,000 calories. And it's like, okay, that's like, maybe a lot of food for you.
Yeah, someone said to me that they're eating 5,000 calories there. I'm like, okay, so what you're eating is actually like 2.5. I'm like, it's...
Yeah, I mean, people's perception, when you actually, you know, when you get someone starting with you and you develop their diet and you send over the calories and you look and you go, that's a lot of food. It's like, no, that's what 3,500 calories of food is. Wait until you're at 5,500, 6,000, and then come back to me when you're eating, you know, 800 or 900 grams of carbs
every day.
Yeah, and that tends to be, you know, I guess probably the biggest mistake that people make is that they under or overestimate. Then from there, you know, you can start looking at training. Are they training properly? Again, that all comes down to people's perceived efforts with training. Like the biggest, I guess, mistake or lesson you can learn is go and train with someone who you perceive trains hard, to see, are you actually training hard? Are you actually taking sets to full failure? Or are you willing to go to that space mentally if you train by yourself? And I guess that's why people, you know, have in-person PTs, to ensure that you are progressing your physique, that you are being pushed to places where mentally you may not go by yourself.
There's a whole new level, I think, when you go and train with someone. I remember, I think it's probably about 3 years ago, first time I trained with James Hollingshead, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, it was just an eye-opening experience. I was like, Jesus. Like,
I mean, like,
and I was like,
I had the same thing. Like when I was 20, when I was sort of delving into bodybuilding a little bit, I got to do a leg session with Mr. Ireland, back then, like he was Mr. Ireland. And I thought like halfway through, I'm not even going to last to the end of the session. And to me, I thought I trained hard personally. And this guy here was just on this other level, making me do like, there was one point we were doing leg press. And I thought this is going to crush me because my legs were at the point of jelly. But then I took that lesson away that, you know, to get to this guy's level, this is where you need to be able to willing to go mentally. But yeah, that's probably one of the biggest mistakes you see, is that people under or overestimate. And then everything after that is sort of then the minutiae of making sure health is good, digestive health is monitored. You know, it all stems back probably to, like I said, the basic solutions to start, and then delving further into either underlying issues that need to be resolved that may be potentially, say they could have insulin resistance issues. You know, we tend to start from the base with the diet first and then start to look at the issues afterwards that could be causing issues.
100%. In terms of, obviously you talked about supplementation briefly, what would you think are the main, like from a health supplement point of view, or even like an intra-workout supplement, the places people are maybe missing out on utilising, which are probably easily available?
A good quality multivitamin. Like the whole thing started with Lee's supplement. And I know you have that YouTube video when we spoke last year with like what were my top 5 supplements if you're on a budget. And like number 1 was the multivitamin, purely for the sole fact that within a multivitamin you should be getting adequate amounts to support metabolic functions like your B vitamins, supporting your immune system with vitamin A, methylfolate, which feeds into methylation. You can have a whole podcast about methylation, how methylation, which is the process how your genes of your body get turned on and off, how that becomes affected by having inadequate levels of folate. So a well-rounded multivitamin should address the basics of your health. You know, have small amounts of antioxidants like CoQ10, which may, you know, you're basically with the supplement, you're trying to supplement to your diet. They're not magic fixes. Like, people shouldn't be viewing supplements as, if I take this, it's an insurance policy that it's protecting me. It should be a supplement to an overall, I guess, way of viewing your health on a global manner. Then after that, I guess, a fish oil. So again, we know the cardioprotective benefits of EPA and DHA. Again, DHA, which is one of the omega-3 fatty acids, has a lot of research involved with cognitive benefit. So for lowering Alzheimer's risk, improving cognitive function. Again, there are arguments around omega-3 supplements on whether they lower inflammation or not. But when we look at inflammation as a global health issue, it would be wise with how the Western diet is set up more towards omega-6 fatty acids that we balance that ratio with omega-3. And a lot of people, again, probably don't eat enough oily fish per week or cold water fish. So tuna, well, not so much tuna, but sardines, salmon, mackerel, all these oily fish that have high levels of EPA and DHA naturally, maybe missing in a diet, so the supplement may come in handy there, again, to supplement their diet. Then after that, you're sort of getting into probably the more technical parts of, again, what I said in the video was liposomal glutathione. We tend to underestimate, again, the environment, air pollution, I guess toxins within the home, outgassing from plastics, etc. They all require glutathione as the master antioxidant of your body to conjugate to those toxic metabolites for excretion in the liver. So if I had to choose 3 health products to use, it would be the multivitamin, moving into fish oil, liposomal glutathione, And then anything after that, you're sort of then going specifically after what your blood work is telling you. And that again is a very popular question to me on Instagram. What health supplement should I be taking?
And the answer is always it
First
depends.
off, yeah, the first answer is always it depends. And then the second question after that is get your blood work done. Even enhanced athletes, regular question is, what supplements do I need to take to protect my health? And again, it's sort of like, stop viewing supplements as this insurance policy that if I take, heart stack, liver stack, kidney stack, that nothing's going to happen. That, I'm taking these products, so therefore no health issues should arise. Well, first off, you need to look at your blood work and see what actually gets skewed. And then from there, figure out what supplements match your health profile best. Rather than, you could spend all the money that you earn each month on this supplement, that supplement, where you might not need half of it. And again, if I was a scrupulous business person, I could tell, anyone that messaged me on Instagram, buy like these 10 products from Supplement Needs. Absolutely. Off you go. Perfect for you. But I can't, I really just don't have the morality there to tell someone, here's a long list of supplements, go buy it. Because to me, I'd rather you spend your money then on good quality food if that's the underlying issue.
Food always comes first.
Yeah, like I don't want to give a long list of supplements where you feel pressured each month. That again gets into the psychology of, if I don't take this health supplement, something bad is going to happen to me. And you fall into it, maybe an addictive thought process that, I have to take this health supplement to stay healthy. Whereas your blood work might not even show that you need it.
It's just wasted money in the first place.
Yeah, so.
We'll start to wrap things up there, Dings. We're going on for a little while. I don't want to keep you too long, so you're an incredibly busy guy. One or two last questions. What's the future plans with you and Supplement Needs? Because I know you've been up to some exciting things. And what's the future for Dr. Dean? What are you taking over next?
God, what's going next? I'm involved in so many things that sometimes
I saw
I think
the PM priming stack or something, a new product you brought out.
Yeah, so I wanted to start to delve into obviously stress, both in the morning time and at night time, is such a big issue. So I developed a morning time AM adaptogen stack that would help you cope with the stress that's coming to you when you wake up before you go to work. And then the PM priming stack is developed then to help calm your mind and lower cortisol that might have built up during the day. The other sort of products that we've released within the last 2 months was the greens powder. Again, that was another big step forward in the industry in that it's not a proprietary blend. I've done a comparison of my greens formula to a top leading brand's green formula, which that top leading brand I was a huge fan of purely for the taste. When you look at the panel on the back of their 11 gram serving, 9 grams of it is flavoring. So you're only getting 2 grams.
No wonder it tastes good.
I know, exactly. And that it tastes amazing, but you then start to see how well you're being duped when only 2 grams of the 11 grams is actually active ingredient. And what even then further insults is that 2 grams is a proprietary blend. So you don't even know exactly how much of each thing you're getting. The greens formula, I said from the very start, everything's going to be exactly dosed and disclosed, to the point that you're getting, I think it's 9.7 grams out of 11 grams active ingredients in the greens powder. Then I had the chewable omega-3 fish oils, which again, very high EPA and DHA, but more so why I wanted to bring that to the market was it has DPA, which is docapentanoic acid, which people probably aren't aware of is a vital component to the omega-3 fatty acids. It's the most unknown of the three. Reason being is a lot of companies actually destroy DPA when they're extracting the fish oil.
So after heating it?
So through the extraction process, the distillation process destroys the DPA content. But DPA has so much research involved in, again, cardiovascular disease risk and lowering Alzheimer's risk, that this company have fought hard to get the product to the market over a year, for the pure fact that when I do my own blood work, when I was utilizing that fish oil, my inflammation markers were all low. My omega-3 percentage in my blood was high, which I didn't see when I compared it to another top leading brand's omega-3 fish oil. So I guess what's come with Supplement Needs is I have a few more products in mind, specifically a glucose disposal stack to help, again, address the concerns of people who may be developing diabetes. And there's an immune stack, which I feel will be perfect in this current climate towards what we have potentially developing globally with coronavirus, or even, seasonal flus could be stemming from the fact that you could have, deficiency in vitamin A or vitamin D, or, the antimicrobials or antivirals that are available to us naturally that most people aren't aware of when they do get a cold or flu. I guess then for myself personally, I don't tend to really have, a 5-year plan, or I plan things out in advance. I've never really operated that way and set myself goals. Because every time I set out a plan, like what I've done at the start of this year, I tend to then get involved in another project that sort of moves that goal around. So there's always been the book that every time I try and go back to write, I get pulled off in another direction to something else. So I am hoping that by the end of this year that I do get back to writing what I believe is going to be an all-encompassing, I guess, health strategy.
Health Bible.
Towards like bodybuilding primarily, because obviously that's sort of the niche that I'm in. But the lessons within can still be applied to normal population as opposed to just enhanced athletes. And actually, coach people or teach people what exactly is happening on a health scale. Discuss the biochemistry, but keep it very simple so that people can actually understand, and why, you take such and such a supplement to address a problem.
Put it in layman's terms.
Yeah, and I feel like that would be great, because then it removes a lot of what I actually currently do day to day, even with Instagram answering questions. It'd be literally be a Bible covering all these things of what I've discussed over the years in either an ebook or a physical book that you can read through to figure out such and such a problem. And then the next big project that I was involved with this week is getting the Supplement Needs education website started. So we're going to launch an education website first and foremost to educate people on the products, to actually have interactive resources to coach you on why the CB stack works, what are the ingredients, how does the sleep stack work, provide people with educational content to help them understand how these products are best applied. And then from there we have then the potential for a membership part of the education website, where I'm actually building a team of experts, you could say, surrounding training, nutrition, rehab, health and supplementation, as a learning hub where there's going to be education content, both visually with videos, but also quite an in-depth and interactive forum where, again, you get full access to all of these experts to discuss any issues that you have. So again, it's all about helping to spread education and potentially upskill people to address their own health, as opposed to, again, hand-holding people.
Sharing knowledge, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of what I've sort of planned for this next 12 months of, I guess, epic madness that does be my own life. And again, the weekly consultations that I do to keep things interesting, continue to help people in all manners of whether it's bodybuilding or health. But yeah, like I said, I don't tend to. In the past, I probably would have thought, like, let's plan out, my next 5 years. But things changed so rapidly as we got in at the start between medicine, and then changed my mind to do music, and then changed my mind to do, you know, chemistry, and now into bodybuilding. Like, people, I always laugh at that. People always message me, like, when I put up videos of me playing my bass guitar, they're like, is there anything that you're not involved in? And it's sort of like, that's from, like, you know, I'm now 32, so this has been like nearly half my life so far of different things I've gotten interested in and went down. So I don't tend to set big plans in place. I mean, if you had said to me, I'm now with Morgan almost 4.5 years. If you would have said to me when I was 26, like, this is what's going to happen next year when you turn 27, like, this is the direction your life's going to go down, I would have laughed. Like, I mean, in the last 2 years, we've bought our second house, we've gotten married, we've had baby Callum. Like, all these things I never really set out and planned and said, this is what I'm going to do. It's sort of just naturally gone with a progression. And I guess, again, if you do set goals like that, you can then fall into the trap of, if you don't achieve what you set out to do, you may get discouraged a little bit that, you know, oh, I wanted to do this goal, but I never done it. But again, that's about looking objectively then, what did you achieve outside of those set target goals? Because maybe something else became more important that pulled you away. I mean, even personally, bodybuilding, I've not competed now in 3 years. And obviously that's always been one of my goals of when I first competed, was to be Mr. Ireland, to win the National Bodybuilding Championship. For the past 3 years, between supplement needs, educating, my own family life, that sort of bodybuilding took a back seat, as, you know, I didn't have a drive there to fulfill that goal of competing, because there was other things that took priority.
For now.
So yeah, till now. So hopefully this year I can get back on stage after 3 years and finally tick off that goal that I've set myself.
I'm sure you will. But no doubt about that, knowing your mindset with things like that.
Fingers crossed.
So thank you so much for that, Dean. We'll start to wrap that up there. So for anyone who doesn't know anything about you, where to find some information about you, Dean, what's your Instagram?
It's Dean STM, DEANSTM. And then my YouTube is the same. But again, I haven't posted much material in the last year on YouTube, just the time issues. But Instagram is probably the best place that you can find me. And then I'll announce in due time the link for the education website for supplement needs.
I'll pop the link for supplement needs below the podcast as well, so you guys go check it out, and the health bits and pieces we've discussed. Hope everyone thoroughly enjoyed this. If you did, please leave a 5-star review. And as always, we're picking one person a week to win a free place for the Shred Nate or Sculpt Nate program. So absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Dean. And hopefully we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks very much, Charlie.